What's up, everybody? This is Grayson McGee.
And I'm Michael Dove.
And we are the Onmindpodcast. We are kicking off episode 1. It feels good to finally be starting this. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. But we're here now.
Yeah, for sure. I know for myself, at least, I've been wanting to do a podcast of some type for at least like 3 years now.
And I've been wanting to do a podcast since you mentioned it to me. a little while ago, but
for sure. But yeah, so basically me and Mike met at Trevecca. That's where we went to school for a little while.
Yep.
Trevecca Nazarene University in Nashville, Tennessee, where I still live. Mike lives in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were roommates together for a year, and we make time to see each other whenever we can.
Yeah.
But obviously it's been a little more difficult this past year.
Yeah. With everything going on.
Yeah, so dorm life was kind of crazy. It was one of the best times of my life for sure. We'd listen to all different kinds of music at all hours of the day. Watch movies every single night.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
For sure. So, in episode 1, we are going to be covering the evolution of music in our generation, and also how music has impacted our lives. So, yeah, let's get going.
All right, cool. First thing I kind of want to mention about music and all that, just growing up, I mainly listened to things like soundtracks, and big reason for that is, like, if you don't know me, which odds are you probably don't, I'm like a big movie nerd. I love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and things like that, and I'm a film major. I'm super big into movies, so growing up I listened to soundtracks like almost exclusively. Like, if I was listening to music that I chose to listen to, it was soundtracks. But beyond that, I pretty much listened to whatever was in my parents' whatever was on my parents' radio or what they were listening to. My dad listened to country. My mom listened to, like...
I didn't know that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Your dad doesn't strike me as somebody that would listen to country music.
He doesn't really listen to it that much anymore. But I remember growing up, he listened to a lot of, like, bluegrass sort of country, and he was a big-time Johnny Cash guy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's kind of funny thinking about it now. But my mom listened to, like, a lot of 80s music and a lot of Christian music, and that was pretty much my, like, music exposure leading up to, I want to say, middle school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess the first time you told me that you like to listen to soundtracks, I was kind of taken back a little bit because I had never met anybody that, like, just listened to soundtracks. I mean, now I do. I don't listen to them all the time, but I do. I do definitely enjoy listening to a full score, especially with my growing love of films and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were definitely an influence for me starting to get a little bit more into movies and whatnot.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I kind of feel proud about that.
You should, because I take great pride in my movie criticism.
That's pretty funny, because, like, now I honestly think that you watch way more movies than I do right now, which is kind of funny. But that's a different podcast for a different day.
True. Yeah, so, but yeah, when I was growing up, I remember my parents listening to Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Ozzy Osbourne. Those are like the top three that stand out in my head. Like
That's
we
funny.
we did have the Christian radio on for sure, um, but that's not really what sticks out a ton in my mind, and that's not the that specific music hasn't lasted the test of time like like these artists from the 70s and 80s have. Not to say that that music isn't important, because I think all music is important. But, um, yeah, I mean, my dad for my no, not my birthday, for Christmas one year, I think I was probably like 10 years old. He gave me his like giant Kenwood speaker set, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I had no clue what to do with it because it was like 100 different wires going
Oh,
everywhere,
that's awesome.
and yeah, just like a bunch of like a receiver and like an eight, or I think it's an 8 or a 12 disc like rotation thing.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool. That is so cool.
yeah, no, it's super. It was super sick. Um, and then these like massive speakers. I have the speakers in my living room right now, and I have the actual stereo in my dining room. Um, I need to get it working. Actually, I need to get on that. I've been meaning to do that for forever now, but yeah, and he gave me like a bunch of his old CDs. They had like a drawer like full of CDs, um, and he would just give me some, and I would listen to them like Ugly Kid Joe. Do you know who Ugly Kid Joe is?
I've never heard of him,
Okay,
if I'm
yeah,
being honest.
he.
That's probably like a bad
I
thing.
no, it's really not. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talk about Ugly Kid Joe, but that's like for some reason one CD that he gave me that kind of sticks out.
That's
Um,
cool.
but yeah, and then I also remember my first introduction to portable music, which honestly changed my life for forever. Um, I I had been saving up. I don't know how long I've been saving up. Like not probably not very long, but because
It
it
felt like forever when you were younger.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And money like $50 back in when I was like 6 or 7 was a lot more money than it is now.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
um, but I this was around the time when the iPod Nano came out,
Oh, wow. Really?
and so I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't afford the iPod Nano, so I bought this black MP3 player. No, it was an MP4 player.
Oh, wow.
You could actually watch music videos on it,
Oh,
which
that's
I
so
thought was
cool.
the coolest
That is
thing of
so
all
cool.
time. I wish I still had it. Like, I mean, it would be worthless to me now, but like just for the sentimental value.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I remember like giving it to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, you know how you burn like music onto all these CDs? I want you to burn like music onto this iPod or this MP3 player. And he was like, okay, I'll try to figure it out. And he probably put like 100 songs on there or something. And whenever I would be doing like chores or anything, I would just like pop my headphones in and listen to whatever I was listening to.
That's awesome.
I remember the first time I heard King Nothing by Metallica. I literally ran up to my dad. I was like, Dad, you have to listen to this song. And he was like, I know what song it is. Like, I downloaded all this music on there for you. But I thought it was thought it was the coolest song I'd ever heard.
That's cool.
Um,
That's like the first time I heard Sicko Mode.
that's funny. Um, but So yeah, that was basically the first introduction to portable music that I had. I had friends that had those like CDs that you could like throw in your backpack or something and plug headphones into them. I thought
Yeah,
those were super cool, but I
yeah.
never had one.
So, uh, I remember my grandparents got me one of those when I was like really little. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember, and I think it was my grandparents. But the ones who live in Nashville on my dad's side, they got me a little like portable CD player, and I thought it was the
That's so
coolest
sick.
thing.
That's so
Like,
sick.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I didn't use it that often, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
but I. This is so funny. The best memory I have of myself with this thing is listening to music in the bathroom. I don't know why. That's the only thing I like. That's the only time I really remember myself using it. But I remember I had like these really crappy headphones that like connected to it, the kind that like they didn't even like go over your ear. They like clipped onto your ear. It was really weird.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. But they weren't
They're like the headphones that came with it, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember just like opening it up, and okay, I do remember this opening it up and seeing the disc like spinning and then it stops, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that was the coolest thing ever.
I know.
But
Honestly.
yeah, it was really cool. It mostly lived in my nightstand, but like I did use it a few times, and I definitely remember enjoying it. But after that, I got like the iPod Nano or whatever. I had like a little green one.
Mhm.
And I remember that like blew my mind because I was like, I can have like
Oh.
2,000 songs on this thing,
Mhm.
and I I would listen to music and play like because it had like 3 games on there. There was like solitaire, and then some game with like a little ball that would like bounce around, and then there was another one, and
Oh,
they
Pong.
like yeah it. No, it wasn't like
It's
Pong.
not Pong?
No, it wasn't Pong.
Oh.
It was different. It was like um, this is so weird,
I
but
don't know.
you had to like bounce this ball against these like bricks that moved and break through 'em. It was really weird. If you had an iPod Nano, you know what I'm talking about because I'm pretty sure it came stock on all of them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I eventually got an iPod Nano, and I thought it was the coolest thing. Well, I mean, like everybody had an iPod Nano,
yeah, a
but
lot
when
of people
I, it was so cool. I remember just like sitting in the car if my mom was like running into a store, I would just pull out my iPod Nano and like play a few of those games.
Yeah.
Because I never had a DS or a Game Boy or anything like that, so that was like the first handheld like
You never had a
gaming
DS or
system
anything
I
like
ever
that?
had. Never.
I remember, and this is a slightly off topic, but just briefly, I remember I had a DS Lite when I was younger, and we used to play it at church like all the time. Like all my friends had one, and we'd play
Mhm.
like games together. I have a lot of fun memories with that thing. I think I sold it or whatever, but it was a lot of fun. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
It's-
I
man,
always
this is
wanted
bringing
one.
me back.
I know, same, honestly.
That's cool. That's really cool. Um, yeah,
So, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I had an iPod Nano till like middle school. I got an iPod Touch, and when I got that thing, I got like access to the internet for like the first time, like just like
Yeah.
unrestricted access to the internet. I mean, it wasn't like unrestricted, but like I could like browse the internet, and it that was like almost like a renaissance for me with music because that opened me up to like all kinds of possibilities. And I want to say that was like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. I remember Tron had just come out, and I thought that movie was like really, really cool, and I really liked the music for it. And because it was like all techno and it sounded so different, but it was a soundtrack, so I remember listening to that. And then somehow through that, I got into Skrillex and dubstep, and that was like the next evolution of my music taste.
Yes. I will probably never forget when you and I were driving from Atlanta super late that one night.
Yeah, it was the night of the Super Bowl.
And-
We were driving back, and we didn't get back till
yeah.
like 2 a.m.
Oh yeah. And we had to be up for class the next day.
Yep.
But like the last like hour of the car ride, we were just blasting Skrillex.
Dude, that was so much fun. That was
No, that
so
was
much
great.
fun.
That was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know when I ever got rid of my iPod Nano. I didn't ever have an iPod Touch. My dad eventually gave me his iPhone 3GS, but I used it as an iPod because I wasn't allowed to have a phone yet. So it was like the same thing as an iPod Touch, but it just looked like a phone. So it was honestly cooler than everybody else's.
Yeah, there you go.
But oh my god, that's so funny. But yeah, I remember like, I mean, I had access, like me and my brother shared like this old like dinosaur of a laptop, and like I remember just like surfing eBay. I don't know why. I didn't have any money to spend, but I would just go on eBay and like look at what I could possibly buy one day. I thought it was the coolest thing.
That's awesome.
And then I discovered YouTube from that computer, and that kind of changed the game for music for me.
Yeah.
Like watching music videos and like being able to type in a song and hear it instantly, because streaming music wasn't a thing at that point. Yeah. That was like, I was like, wow, like this is so cool. I don't have to download this song. I can type it in on Wi-Fi, but a lot of times I did have Wi-Fi. I could type it in and I could have it instantly, pretty much.
I remember when the Wi-Fi in my house was so bad. When I got like that little iPod Touch, I remember I was like trying to listen to music and stuff, and I had to wait like 10 minutes for like the whole video to load so I could actually like listen to it without it like stopping just to buffer. Like it was so rough, but I was like, when I first got that iPod, I was like obsessed with YouTube, and I have been like ever since. I mean, it hasn't changed. And it's crazy to think that was like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean,
in some way, it feels like it was longer.
YouTube was started in like 2008, right? I think.
Oh, I think it's older than that. It's like 2005, maybe.
Oh,
It's been around for a minute, but it didn't get big.
I guess I was
later.
Yeah, I guess so.
Back when views were still hits.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so that was having that iPod or iPhone, whatever.
Yeah.
Was definitely pivotal for me in like discovering what music I like.
Yeah.
I know in that time, like, I'm trying to remember what I was listening to. I think probably like Britney Spears. I don't know. But honestly, Britney Spears slaps, so I don't have any shame about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think probably, oh man, what was I listening to? Oh, Coldplay and The Killers, definitely. Oh, what was that one band that had that song called Secrets or something? One Republic.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my god, I thought One Republic was the coolest band of all time.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. Yeah, that's so funny to think about. Actually, you know what? I was in McKay's the other day, and I was looking through all the I love McKay's. I was looking through the records, and like sitting on top of a stack was a One Republic record. And I was like, wow, that's a throwback for sure.
That's cool. That's so cool.
Definitely. But I mean, after that, I eventually like got a phone, but my parents didn't want to pay like the smartphone data or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that was or if that was even a thing. But I remember they may
No,
have
I
just
think
not
it
wanted me
was
to
a thing.
have
It was like extra, I think, to have a
Oh,
smartphone
okay.
with. Yeah.
But so I had my iPod, iPhone, whatever, and then my slide phone for a while until in middle school I got like an actual iPhone 4S.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, I think at that time streaming might have started to become a thing. I remember hearing someone say something about Spotify, but I had no clue what it was. At the time I thought Spotify was like a music rating app where you go to rate music.
That's funny.
Why I thought that, I don't know.
That's really funny.
um, but at that point in time, I mean, like everybody had either an iPod or an iPhone, and everybody had access to the internet,
Yeah.
and everybody was discovering music for themselves.
Yeah.
So, like at school, like hearing everyone else's music was like probably pretty pivotal for me as well. Um, I remember, oh my gosh, this was probably a big moment in my music life. In middle school, my friend Matthew was obsessed with the Beatles. And I was like, the Beatles? I'd never heard of them. I may have heard of them, but I don't like recognize them.
That's
But
funny.
his parents would play the Beatles at home, and he just loved them.
Yeah.
And then I started listening to them, and I bought the Beatles' White Album. No, I got that for Christmas one year actually. On CD, and I would play it in my Kenwood speaker and my Kenwood stereo set. This stereo set is also from like the early '90s. I wish I could like put a picture in here or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'll see if I can add it in post. Maybe not. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. um, but so yeah, I mean, like the Beatles, like it's strange. It's strange to me now that I did like the Beatles that much because of how political they are and just the nature of their music in general.
Hmm.
um, but I mean, the Beatles are still one of my top played artists of all time,
I remember.
and
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, still super influential in my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember my dad went through like a Beatles kick. I mean, he still like listens to them. Actually,
Mm.
he's got like XM radio in his car, and he listens to like the Beatles
Station.
station. Yeah, like all the time.
Nice.
He's big into the Beatles. Yeah. And I remember
Nice.
when I was younger, him introducing the Beatles to me for the first time, and we even had like the Rock Band Beatles game.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, we did. We had
I
like.
had that too. I had
You
that
did?
too.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I
I
beat
remember
it.
playing
I
that.
beat it in like 1 or 2 days, I think.
For real? That's awesome. Yeah. But I remember growing up listening to Beatles like, but that was probably like late elementary school, early middle school, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, yeah, but I remember that he listened to them, he listened to Adele and a few other artists, but like, yeah, and I think he also was listening to Michael Bublé back then as well. Uh,
Good old Michael.
I know, right? He's awesome.
Good old Michael
Um,
Bublé.
but as I got into high school, my music taste kind of shifted again, just because like you were saying, well, for me anyway, like middle school I was homeschooled, so when I got into high school, like at the start of my sophomore year, um, uh, I went to a private Christian academy in Nashville, and then midway through my sophomore year, we moved to Atlanta from Nashville. But I remember I was kind of exposed to what my peers outside of church, were kind of listening to and that sort of music. Because before it was like my music taste was not necessarily what my friends were listening to because I didn't really like talk music with them very much. It was mainly what I ran into online. But when I got, into high school and started, hanging out with people, my music taste started to shift again. And it was kind of funny because, like, I definitely, like, hopped on the dubstep train and, like, rode it a little past when it was dead.
Me too. Me too.
And then after that, I started to, like, get into rap and stuff like that. And I remember I started out listening to Lecrae, and it just kind of evolved from there till I wouldn't say it really started getting into rap till, like, and hip-hop and really pop music as well, till, like, my senior year of high school. And that kind of carried on into college. But in my senior year of high school, I also started to get into things like Apple Music and Spotify because a lot of my friends had it, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I didn't have, like, unlimited data like some of the people I knew, so, like, watching videos outside my house to listen to music basically was, like, not gonna happen because it just, like, destroyed my data. But, like, Apple Music and Spotify and things like that don't destroy your data when you're listening to music, even on, if it's not downloaded. And so I kind of, like, used the free trials and then made more accounts and then used the free trials. And till I
know someone,
couldn't.
I have a friend that got, like, 5 years of Spotify for free because he just kept on making new accounts where he get the like 30-day trial or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome. Spotify is losing so much money over him. That's great.
Literally. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Well, actually, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
To Rock Band. Rock Band really did change my life a little bit. Like,
Rock
that
Band
sounds...
saved my life.
It does sound a little weird, but Rock Band is the reason or a main contributor to why I do music today.
That's awesome. That's really cool,
like
actually.
I was playing, like, the drums on Rock Band, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Maybe I'll get, like, an actual drum set. And so eventually I bought an actual drum set, which I've realized lately I shouldn't have gotten rid of that drum set. I sold it for so cheap, and it was a nicer drum set than I realized it actually was at the time. I just didn't know how to make it sound good like I do now. But that's whatever. Right. But yeah, I mean, like, all of those songs off of Rock Band 1, like, a lot of them were, like, grunge era, like, 90s music, which is still today, like, my top 5, like, in the top 5 genres of music that I love. Like, I don't even know. It's crazy.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I had a lot of friends who were in going back a little bit back into middle school, who were, like, into screamo and all this other stuff, and I just never got into, I know it's, like, different from, like, grunge. I've never been part of that culture, so I couldn't tell you much about it. But I also had a lot of friends who were into, like, My Chemical Romance, and I remember when they broke up, they were all, like, devastated, and I was just like, okay.
Well, apparently they might be doing a reunion.
Oh, for real? It's like the Jonas Brothers. It's like everything's coming back.
Yeah, for real. My Chemical Romance is a classic, for sure.
Yeah. It was so funny. It wasn't till, like, I remember I was in high school, and I was, like, thinking back into middle school, and I was like, My Chemical Romance, all my friends back in middle school would, like, talk about it. I never once listened to a song, and I listened to it, and I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be into that, like, whole genre of music.
No. That's not my thing. If it's your thing, that's awesome, by the way. But
It's for sure. It's for sure my thing. So if you're watching or listening, I'm with you for sure.
One thing, one thing I am really embarrassed I listened to was when I was younger and I first got like my iPod or whatever. I was really big into Minecraft because I got like Minecraft Pocket Edition, and it like blew my mind. You know where this is going.
Yeah.
And so I I ain't admitting this, but I was one of those kids that listened to like the Minecraft parodies and remixes and stuff. And I thought they were like the coolest thing for like 6 months, and then I've never looked back since till now.
At least it was only 6 months, because I knew people that like listened to Minecraft music for a long time, long time.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think if I have any music that I've ever been embarrassed. Like I would now be embarrassed to listen to. I don't know. Maybe I'll think.
You've
of
always
it in a
been
minute.
you've always been too cool for that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But in high school, I like made different friends and new friends, and I definitely got into the whole metal scene, like metalcore genre. Definitely like punk music. And I can't remember which came first. I think that came first, and then I got into dubstep.
Okay.
But honestly, like the two are not like they're a derivative of each other.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the beats in dubstep are like metal beats.
Oh, really?
Just with like electric drums. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and then like weird wubs and dubs everywhere.
Yeah, weird ups and dubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, like the people I would hang out with, they would listen to. I was in Boy Scouts, and in my Boy Scout troop, the older scouts were listening to like metal and like punk music, and I was like, man, I want to be like them. So, that might be how I got into that
That's cool.
type of
That's kind of
music.
funny.
Yeah. So I mean, I
just
still love
imagine
it
you
today.
all like around the campfire, and somebody just is like, "Hey, Grayson, you should listen to this." Whoa, what is this?
For real, that's probably how it happened, honestly. But I mean, like metal, going to a metal concert or a punk concert, like there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Like the energy in the crowd is unreal. It's like I've been to pop concerts and like other types of like smaller shows, but like the energy that a heavier band brings is like unmatched. It's crazy.
One thing I kind of want to talk about now, and this is, I don't know if we had talked about talking about this, but it would be live music, our experience with live music.
Yeah.
Because for me, I haven't had a lot of live music experiences, honestly. I remember when I was younger, like middle school, Mom took me downtown to the Predator Stadium, and I saw this tour that was going on. It's not happening anymore, of course, but it was called Star Wars in Concert, and it was hosted by Anthony Daniels, who was the actor who played C-3PO, and it was the London Symphony Orchestra. I think it was the London Symphony Orchestra, and they played the Star Wars soundtrack to different scenes from the movies, and I think that was my first, or at least that I can remember, that was my first live music experience. Like, ever, and it was so cool. It was so cool. And I don't know if you ever went to this or if you remember this, but do you know what Winter Jam is?
That was I hate that this is the truth. But Winter Jam was my first live music experience, first concert, whatever you want to
Really?
call it. Yeah.
Really?
I when
Wow.
people ask me what my first concert was, I say Skillet because they were like the headliner of the whole show at the
I remember
time.
that one. Yeah, I remember that one.
Um, and they're like kind of a respectable band, I guess.
Yeah, no, they're pretty
So
cool.
it's not that embarrassing to say that.
No.
But yeah, I went to one or two winter jams.
Yeah. That's kind of. I would not have thought that. I would not have thought that at all. Um,
Yeah.
I remember Winter Jam being incredibly influential in getting me into rap because I remember I saw Lecrae for the first time and the amount of energy that was in the stadium and the energy on stage and just his music. Like I didn't know his music, but I was like
Mm,
so into it. And I remember that night going back home from Winter Jam and just like looking up his music on YouTube and I was like, wow, this stuff's pretty good. And I started like buying up all his albums and getting into it and yeah, that kind of like
that's cool.
kickstarted that.
That's really cool. Man, like buying albums is just not a thing you do anymore, and
I
it's kind of
know.
sad.
It is kind of
It's kind
sad.
of sad because like buying a physical album from an artist brings them way more much more money than streaming their album once will.
Yeah.
Like it's just so like the payment they get is so small from streaming a song or streaming an album.
Yeah.
Um,
That's something I don't
so
know. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say so it's like just kind of sad that that's not super mainstream to do anymore.
Yeah, that's something I don't know too much about, honestly, is like how I know that Spotify has affected like the music industry as far as like the creators in a negative way. It's been like really good for the consumer because you can listen to so much music for so
Definitely.
cheap. I mean, you get unlimited, music. It's crazy. For like if you're a student for like $5 a month, like how can you
Mm,
beat that? But at the same time, it's like at what cost to the creator?
yeah,
Because I have heard a little bit. I don't know too much about that, and that's a podcast, another podcast on its own that we could do. But yeah, I don't know too much about that, but I would be interested in maybe exploring that someday and kind of digging a little deeper in that.
for sure. Um, yeah, it's just really interesting. Just how like it's evolved
Yeah.
and yeah. So I mean the the sad thing is like live music was the way artists would like it's their best way to get their name out and it's the best way for them to earn money especially
Really?
nowadays because
Yeah.
yeah because people like aren't buying as many albums but when you go to a concert you have the ticket sales you have the merch
Yeah.
you have I mean like just like any sponsors that they may have um that and then like 2020 that kind of just died away
Yeah, I can't imagine the
so
impact on the music industry. That's something I haven't really
yeah
thought of.
it's really rough and like living in Nashville you just hear about so many bands and artists that
Wow.
like are popular but they're just like struggling
And that's crazy to think
um
about. Your favorite artists could be struggling right now because of 2020 and
yeah
now 2021.
unless they're giant and they like if they release a single then they'll like be sufficient on that money from that single for however long like
Yeah.
I don't know like if like people like the 1% of musicians don't have to worry about that sort of thing but the rest of them do um so yeah it's just really interesting um
Cool. Cool. Cool.
and then going or like thinking about from like going from high school and the music I listened to in high school, it's kind of all over the place. Just because I had so many different influences at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and then going to college, at the year I spent there, it changed again, but it wasn't as like broad. It was more narrowed down. I didn't really listen to, well, I kind of listened to rap before college. I did. I did. I listened to like my select few artists.
Yeah.
But then like living with you, like I listened to a lot more.
Yeah.
Um and it's funny because you mentioned the Tron soundtrack from earlier and dubstep or not dubstep. Oh my god. Daft Punk.
Yeah,
Late.
the Tron soundtrack, Daft Punk.
It's late. That's why I'm like messing up my words right now.
No, you're good. Yeah, I've kind of kept
yeah,
it pretty late.
Daft Punk did that album, and that's how you got into Daft Punk.
Yeah.
And then when we lived together, you would listen to it, and like I'd be like, okay, it's kind of cool, I guess. It's pretty repetitive. Don't know if I like it. But like fast forward, dubstep is in my top 10 favorite bands of all time.
You mean Daft Punk?
Did I say dubstep?
You said dubstep. No, you're good. You're good.
Daft Punk is in my top 10 favorite bands of all time.
It's so cool. There's something about like just the simplicity of their music that I feel like I can just kind of like zone out and just enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like it's simplistic if you want it to be simplistic, but it's very not simplistic if you want it to be more.
Yeah, you can kind of like almost like listen into it and hear more. It's really unique.
For sure.
It's so unique. And I think
One
that's
of
what I
my
like about it.
One of my favorite things that they do is, I'm not sure if they do this on all their records, but they will start the drum beat or they'll start the melody on like beat 1 or whatever, and like it'll just go for a few measures, and then instead of starting the melody on beat 1 over here, they'll start it on beat 3. So you're hearing this like motion of the music, and then it just kind of like shifts and goes like backward, kind of not backward, but it catches your attention again.
Oh wow!
And it's honestly genius. I don't think I've ever heard any other artist do that.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
It's my favorite thing that they do. So yeah, definitely love Daft Punk.
Yeah.
And then what else did I listen to in college? I mean, I still listen to like all my indie artists that I have carried with me throughout the years. I eventually stopped listening to rap altogether.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of back on it. But
really?
Yeah. Lately I've been listening to, I mean, I've always listened to Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
He's probably my number 1 of all time. But I've been listening to a lot of Tyler the Creator lately.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And a lot of Anderson .Paak, if you count him as rap.
Okay.
I guess I do. I don't know. It's more like R&B. But yeah. So no, it's not really R&B. It's more like hip hop than anything.
I remember. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I remember one thing that I listened to when we first met that you were like not into, but then you got into was Muse.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
Definitely.
I don't think I ever told you how like I got introduced to Muse and how I got into their music. Um, and I'll never forget this. This is a really cool moment in high school. I remember. So a little bit of background. The high school I went to was like massive. Um, I think my graduating class was like 800 to 1,000 students. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in this videography class, and we were going on a field trip to take a tour of CNN in downtown Atlanta, like the CNN building. Um, really cool experience. And it was actually the day that Trump got into office, so there was a lot going on at CNN. It was
Oh,
pretty
sure.
crazy. It was wild. Hard to think that was almost 4 years ago now. But
It'll be 4 years ago in 15 days.
that's crazy. That's crazy. But anyway, man, that's crazy to think about. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I remember I was driving down with this kid who was like super popular at my school, and like the only way I probably would have ever had contact with this guy is just only through this class. And I remember it was just me and him. We were carpooling to CNN. There's a bunch of other people in my class we were all heading down there in different vehicles and stuff. And I remember we listened to. I was like, "What kind of music are you into?" And he was like, "Well, I'm into rap." And I was like, "Did you ever listen to dubstep when you were younger?" He was like, "Yeah." And we listened to dubstep the whole time, and we listened to like remixes of different things. And he played a remix of a Muse song, like a dubstep remix of a Muse song. And
Oh,
I don't know
interesting.
if you can even find it now. Like I don't know if you could find it. I think it was on SoundCloud. It was somebody made it or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so I don't know if it's out there, but I remember uh, that being my first ever introduction to Muse, and I liked their lyrics. It was to Knights of Sidonia or whatever. It was a dubstep remix
Mm.
of that, and I was like, that sounds kind of cool. So later, later that day when I got home, I kind of like looked them up, and I fell in love with their music, um, like instantly. And I just started listening to all their old albums and stuff. It's kind of crazy. That guy became prom king, which didn't surprise me that year. It was so wild. But we had this moment where we both listened to dubstep like we were in middle school again. It's kind of funny.
That
That
is
and we
funny.
listened to a little bit of rap as well. But that's how I got introduced to Muse, and I kind of carried that over into not in high school, into college. I'd say I've kind of been off and on with Muse. Like I'll listen to them like exclusively for like a month, and then a year will go by and I haven't really listened to them, and then I'll be right back on it again.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
how I
I,
am.
I understand that. I'm that way with some artists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really like Muse. I haven't listened to them for a long time, but I enjoy their stuff. But yeah, I didn't enjoy them back when we lived together
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
That's kind of
For
funny.
whatever reason that I had.
It's neat how music
Um,
tastes change.
Definitely. And that's another thing, like my music tastes have changed drastically throughout my lifetime, but I still have my like the select group of bands that I have always listened to and I will always continue to listen to. Um,
What
and
would you
I've kind
say?
of
Oh,
what? What's up?
go. Well, I was gonna ask, what would you say those bands would be? Like,
Well, my number one favorite band of all time, this will never change, is Pink Floyd.
okay.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, they're incredible. Um, Only recently have I dove into their like early records from like what was it like 1965, maybe earlier than that. Um, and it's all like super experimental, like psychedelic music. But it's so interesting because back then labels, like record labels, would do anything.
Hmm.
They would just like put them in a studio and be like, okay, let's see what you can give us.
What?
And then they'll make a record, and then the label's like, they'll either like say, okay, yeah, let's sign you or whatever, or no, I don't think this is gonna work out. And it's so interesting because if any of you have ever listened to their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I think that's their first album. Yeah, I'm almost positive it is. Yeah. It's so weird. It's so strange. But it's very like avant-garde and very experimental. And if you brought that same level of music, like of unusual music, to a record label today, they would be not interested in the slightest. So it's just interesting how the music industry has changed that way, so much. Like, it's just strange because back then, I mean, you could do anything. I mean, a lot of bands kept their sound and maybe changed it a little bit, but Pink Floyd had that one sound. They lost their lead singer at a certain point, and they took their music into a way more mainstream, but still extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Unusual and
unique.
And yeah, unique sound.
That's cool. That's really cool. I haven't really listened to a lot of their stuff. I'll have to check them out.
You definitely should. I recommend everybody to, honestly. So yeah, they're number one. That was a rabbit trail for sure.
That's good. That's good.
Actually, let me go back a little bit. My first, because I already talked about this a little bit earlier. My first introduction to Pink Floyd ever was, my dad gave me this CD that he bought at a concert, and the CD was, I think it was 4 CD, like the entirety of it was 4 CDs long. And it was Pulse, which is their live recording, and it's like almost 2 hours long, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
Of music. And it's all live. It all just like runs together. And he played that for me
awesome.
on the Kenwood stereo. And like I just laid in my bed with the lights off. And if you know what the music of Pink Floyd sounds like, then like I just felt like I was floating. And that was the first like important experience I think I've ever had with music.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so definitely pivotal in my life.
I kind of like that though, pivotable.
It rolls off the tongue pretty nice.
It does. I want to make that a phrase or like a word. I want to make that a thing. That's cool.
So anyway, long story short, they're number one. I would say. Oh man, who else? The Beatles are up there in the bands that I would always listen to. Let me see here real quick. I have a list of like all of my favorite bands of all time. And if they're my favorite band, you'd think that I would just know them off the top, but right now it's just not working out for me.
No, that's cool. I kind of put you on the spot there.
Yeah, so it's fine. But I yeah, I mean I have like this collection of bands that I will forever listen to. And then I'll have other bands that I'll listen to for a little while, then I'll drop them off. I'll pick them up again maybe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I'll just like it's just a cycle that repeats itself. Um and over the past year, if this year has been good for me in any way, if 2020 has been good for me in any way, I've really honed in on um, what kind of music is important to me, and what like I understand like the not the meaning, but kind of just like the importance of
That's
it in my
awesome.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah. Going back a little bit, uh, I remember. Yeah. It's kind of funny because when I met you and we started listening to like rap music and stuff together, I was still fairly new to it. Because it was something a lot of my
Mm,
friends and people I knew had listened to, but I was like just now starting to like explore the genre and really hip hop in general.
yeah,
Um, and it was just kind of neat having that experience of like listening to stuff for the first time with you or with some of the other guys in the dorm. And it was just really cool. But I definitely think that it reflected like the mood and the mindset I was in at the time because I was really frustrated with a lot of things. I had a lot going on, and I think that that kind of like um, it affected my music tastes in a way because now like I don't listen to it nearly as much as I used to.
mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it is I just kind of like I've listened to so much that I'm like it all sounds the same now, and
I mean,
anything new just doesn't sound as good.
I've kind of always thought that about at least the trap genre.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
think all trap music sounds the same.
When it was new to me, it was like wow, this sounds so different and so cool to everything I've really been listening to, and it's
Yeah,
popular. A lot of people are listening to it, and now I'm just kind of like, eh. Every once in a while there'll be like a new song where I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool, but I'm not like nearly as into it as I used to be when I first met you. What's kind of funny is I've now, and I don't necessarily know like what transitioned me into this, but I've been listening to. Uh, I've really branched out in what I listen to. Honestly, I've been listening to a lot of like classical music, like Beethoven.
love me
Uh,
some classical music.
I, I don't like Beethoven very much, but I love Vivaldi. I love Mozart. I've been listening to them a lot, and that definitely comes from my love of soundtracks and John Williams and Howard Shore and Hans Zimmer and all kinds of that definitely derives from that.
Yeah.
But I've also been listening to a lot of like not necessarily country music, but more like cowboy music, like
Oh
old
yeah. Same.
like cowboy songs, stuff like that.
Yeah, like from
Uh,
the 50s and 60s.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, songs that like tell a story, and yeah, I've been, and I think that's just because I've been kind of like, well, I've been getting back into like Western movies, and I think it kind of
Mhm.
comes from that. I remember when I was little, I used to grow up watching westerns with my grandpa, because they like babysit me basically a lot, and he watched westerns all the time. And now I'm older, I'm going into like film and things like that. I've been kind of like re-experiencing westerns in a new way. I've been listening to like a lot of like western soundtracks, a lot of Ennio Morricone, if I'm pronouncing his name right. He did a lot of like the good, the bad, the ugly music and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, everybody knows like the good, the bad, and the ugly theme. He did that.
Yeah.
Um, and some of his music is really cool. And actually, another way, with soundtracks and that sort of thing, a lot of Quentin Tarantino's music is is done by Ennio Morricone. He either takes his music from
Oh,
other
I didn't know
movies,
that.
or yeah, he uses him like a lot. Like he's in a lot of stuff. Um,
Interesting.
So yeah, if you're getting into composers and like soundtracks, I definitely listen to him on Spotify. But yeah, I've been getting into that, and also lo-fi. Like everybody's been getting into lo-fi. I'll like edit and listen to like lo-fi playlists and stuff, and
For sure.
I've been enjoying lo-fi like a lot, like a lot.
I
So
typically only listen to lo-fi when I'm like reading,
yeah,
and I'll listen to like ambient, like synth music, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
some lo-fi in there as well.
It's really good background music if you're working on anything, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
It's just really chill.
I like lo-fi too, is because they sample a lot of things from
Yeah,
like old movies,
yeah.
old songs.
It's almost
Um,
like recycling stuff for like a new generation, if that makes
yeah,
sense. And that's something I
and
really like about it.
that whole thing comes from like originated in the rap scene.
Yeah, yeah, for
Like,
sure.
I mean, that's been people have been sampling old songs since the beginning of rap. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of what like the scratching records is like they'll take like an old song and they'll like scratch it in and out and play a little part of it and then just go back into their song,
yeah,
which is it's really cool. And it's cool that it's now evolved in like sampling has now evolved into a completely different sound being lo-fi.
yeah. No,
And I mean
that is
like
so cool. Yeah,
people sample in every single genre that exists, but
it's so heavy
it's
in hip hop and
it's
lo-fi and things like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Um, but yeah, I really like classical music. I don't listen to it as much as I used to, but Mozart is definitely my favorite. Um, I
Vivaldi's
I
Four
like
Seasons. Oh, so good.
yeah,
I love it.
that's true. It's very good. I like Beethoven a lot too.
Yeah,
There's this one. I think his name is Ravel. He's not super popular, but I really enjoy his compositions.
I'll have to listen to his music.
I could be wrong on his name. I think that's what his name is.
There's a guy, I don't remember his name. I think he was Russian, but he greatly inspired John Williams. If you listen to, there's a particular song of his. I think it's like called "Mars, the Bringer of War." But if you listen to certain aspects of that song, and then you know the soundtrack for A New Hope, John Williams literally ripped his music and put it in New
Oh
Hope.
really?
No joke, like no joke. You listen to like especially the part where like Luke is flying and about to like blow up the Death Star, and there's a lot of like drums and stuff like
Spoiler
that.
alert! Spoiler alert! By the
Yeah, if
way.
you haven't seen a 40-something-year-old movie that has influenced movies in our culture more than anything else, spoiler alert. But but that it's crazy just how like much even like classical composers, and I don't even think his music's that old. I think he composed his stuff in like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. This guy, so it's not
Yeah.
like super old, but it's crazy just to think how everything just derives from something else, and
Hmm.
it's just neat. It's just neat, and going almost like going back and talking about samples, but that's in a way even showing how samples are kind of sort of in the soundtrack and classical composing genre sort of stuff,
Yeah.
orchestral music. I mean, it's everywhere.
Definitely.
It's
Definitely.
everywhere.
For sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have also been getting into Western music lately. Um, it peaked in the summertime. I think that's just because of the season.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, I don't know, my taste in music and what I get into is relevant towards what I like what other aspects of culture I'm currently into. So I'm really into like 60s music and 70s music right now, and also 60s and 70s decor and fashion and
Yeah, that's really cool.
architecture. Um, so whenever I am interested in something, I kind of like take every aspect and involve it into my life somehow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is funny, and I guess it's kind of like a fad mentality, but whatever, I'm okay with it.
I mean, I know what that's like.
Yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's kind of neat how like I feel like the time that we're at, like when we were born and stuff, is kind of neat that we have like so much music to look back on, and so much music now that's being made, and so much music to look forward to. I
oh
feel like
for
we're like in
sure.
a golden age of like, I mean, say what you want about the state of the music industry now and things like that, but we really are in a golden age for music when it comes to listening to music because we have so much at our fingertips. I mean, it's insane.
Hmm.
There's so much to listen to. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of irresponsible to not go back and understand where our music today came from, since we do have such ease of access to like ancient music even.
Yeah.
um like not to be more of a Pink Floyd fangirl than I've already proven myself to be, but I was listening to one of their earlier records today, or not today, but this month. And well, it's January now, so last month. Um and I was like, wow, this is like, I was listening to the guitar and I was like, wow, this is where like a probably a big influence of where this guitar tone influenced punk musicians 20, 30 years later,
Mm.
even maybe 10, because I guess punk music started in the 70s. um,
That's still really
but
cool to
yeah,
think about.
yeah, and I mean, like, then that influences something else, and then here we are today, you know.
And that's kind of and I mean, I think about modern society even. There's so many subcultures and things that have derived from other things, especially like in music. There's so many genres and subgenres and you know, I kind of wonder with kind of like the explosion of social media, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, all these different things, how that's even going to create even more and more subcultures and more niche cultures and things like that in the music industry because I mean anybody can put out anything now and it can get huge, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's really interesting. It kind of like defeats the purpose of labels almost.
yeah,
Not, maybe not defeats the purpose, but it definitely is kind of cutting corners, which is a good
it's
thing and a bad
interesting.
thing.
Yeah, because I feel like now like, you know, more than ever with and this goes for so many industries, especially like the movie industry and things like that. You don't need some big studio or organization or company telling you what to do. You can just make stuff and people can hear it. Because it used to be those companies almost like owned the means of distribution. Like you want to be heard, you have to go to
Hmm.
them. But now with like the internet, anybody can find you. And that's kind of in a way it's kind of scary because you gotta think about like, okay, so how are you getting found? Well, it's an algorithm. Like our whole society and culture is like controlled by an algorithm, is controlled by a machine,
Yeah, that's some for real stuff right
which is
there.
which is like wild. That's like another podcast on its own. But like, and I keep saying that we're definitely gonna have more podcasts coming in the future, talking about other topics. But like, it's kind of crazy to think that like our culture's music taste is now controlled by machines. And I'm not saying like that's a good or bad thing, but it's just a reality. And it's just a fact that I didn't really think about till like, well, I would say this year, but now last year, since it's a new year. But like last year, I was just thinking about uh, how that works, and I'm like, our
Yeah,
whole society is now almost like governed by algorithms and artificial intelligence. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about how much more that'll influence music in the future and
Yeah.
like uh any creative art in the future. Like who knows? I mean, 40 years ago, music being made on a computer was not even an idea
Yeah.
that somebody had. Like computers were barely even a thing at that point.
And now music popularity
Um,
is determined by a computer, pretty much.
that and
And made on
like
one.
you can make an entire album by sitting at your laptop
That's wild.
with like bare minimum like a pair of headphones and maybe a microphone. That's all you need, honestly. I
Wow.
mean, like other things help. They definitely help and make your music maybe sound better. But you can record everything from your laptop. You can mix everything from your laptop, master it, and then distribute it from your laptop.
What a time to be alive. That's
And
crazy.
yeah, yeah. And you know who knows what music will look like in even 10 years
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you know like when we're older. It's it's really exciting to see. I've been kind of hating on newer music lately, but it is important and I oh, that's my phone. Um and it is like exciting to think about what's going to surprise us about music next.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah. That that's pretty much all that I feel like there is to say. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Um I mean, we've been talking for a minute, so
Yeah, it's
I
been a
think we're
minute.
pretty I think we're good.
All right.
um Yeah, so to kind of round things out, I think what we're wanting to do is end each episode with our weekly favorites. Um, we might coin a better name for that in the future, but for right now, we're calling it our weekly favorites.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and say what you've been into this week.
Yeah, so this week, this is kind of a weird thing. Okay, so I spend a lot of my day, for those who don't know, editing, when I'm at home anyway, editing videos and things like that. Shout out to my YouTube channel, shameless plug, Weird Pigeon Productions. You want to check it out, subscribe. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I just spend a lot of time editing videos for not just that, but a lot of freelance things and other channels. And while I'm editing, I'll listen to like YouTube videos or live streams or podcasts or music, lo-fi.
Yeah.
But this week, I've been listening to VR chat stories, which is really weird.
Wait,
But
what
it's
is that?
so. Have you ever heard of VR chat? It's
I
like
don't think so.
think of like chat rooms, but it's in virtual reality.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah.
I follow this artist who has started doing um Q&As every week that way. And
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
it's it's very it's very weird
It is
looking,
weird.
but
Yeah.
it's very cool. So
Um,
yeah, go on.
yeah, so there's this guy, he's on YouTube, and you can probably find tons of these videos, but he basically finds really interesting people from all over the world who are on VR chat and interviews them. And he's this Canadian guy, and I think it's a group of people that do this. But they find these really interesting people, and they kind of like tell their life story. They talk about like their regrets, really hard things they've been through, um, different things that they've been in and out of or whatnot. Whether it's like sometimes it's people who've been in jail, sometimes it's people who have really odd jobs. Like there's this guy who is, I forget what the actual name of the job is, but he's a German guy, but he's the guy who like goes around and picks up like dead people and brings them to like the graveyard and things like that.
Mm.
And he was kind of just explaining his experience, and he's a young guy too. Like he's like our age. He's not like married or anything like that. It's just interesting to hear his story. But a lot of them are like ex-military, and kind of like their stories and experiences, and people who have had really, really rough upbringings and how they got through it. And a lot of it sounds kind of like depressing or weird or whatnot, but a lot of it's like really, to me anyway, a lot of it's like really, I don't want to say inspiring. I'm trying to think of the word, but I guess it kind of just fills me with like a really good feeling of like hope and thankfulness of like kind of like where my life is at right now and how I was raised,
Yeah.
and it inspires me and fills me with a lot of hope because these people are able to get through these really tough things, and they talk about how they like got out of it or how they've been able to cope with certain tough stuff that's happened in their life. And at the end of every video they always have like a message, like if you had anything to say to the world, what would it be through your like with the experiences you've had. And they always have some kind of like insight, and it's really, really cool just to like be editing b-roll footage and
Mm-hmm.
cutting and splicing clips that I'm not
Yeah.
listening to the audio, and just listen to these people's life stories. It definitely helps to pass some of the mundane tasks of editing, and it's something that I've been really interested in
That's cool.
lately.
That's really cool.
It's really unique, but I've been like listening to those nonstop.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I'll have to check those out for sure then.
that's pretty cool.
Maybe you could send me a few links or something.
Yeah, yeah.
My weekly favorite is on a completely different note. For Christmas I got an air fryer, like convection oven combo like thing. I don't. It does like a billion different things.
No, that's cool.
But it's super cool. But I do have a beef with the term air frying because it doesn't exist. Frying food with air is not real. I hate to break it to everyone
What?
listening.
So how does it work?
It's literally an oven. People in a room were like, "Hey, we should like our like toaster ovens haven't been selling very well. We should make a new look for them and call them something else." So, what they did is they turned a toaster oven into something that looks different with a handle. Um, and they added a fan, and it is an air fryer. That's what they've now called it.
Wow.
But it's literally just an oven. There's nothing being fried. You can there I mean there is a fan. I don't know exactly what that does. I'm assuming it like pushes the heat around. But air frying does not exist. um So, yeah. But I have really enjoyed mine so far. So shout out to my grandma for buying that for me for Christmas.
Thank you, Grandma.
Yeah. Um,
Grandmas are the best.
but yeah, truly. God bless.
Whether it's air fryers
Um,
or portable DVD players.
Yeah.
Or CD players, excuse me.
For sure.
Cool.
But cool. I think that's all we got for
Yeah.
today, at least.
That was a really solid first
So-
podcast.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. Maybe, hopefully, you guys think so. So yeah, you can find us on Instagram, Onmindpodcast. We'll have like everything in the show notes too. If you have any suggestions for us about what kind of episodes we should do, you can DM us there. You can email us at our email. I think our email is Onmindpodcast as well.
I'll put it in the video if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, it'll be on.
Yeah, at gmail.com, of course.
Yeah, of course. Good old Gmail.
What else do you want to plug?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on Instagram personally, I'm Weird Pigeon Productions. Grayson, you want to share your?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at grayson.m.
Yeah. And if you want to listen to this, podcasts and other formats, we're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on Apple Podcasts. I know for sure. I think we're also going to be on Google Podcasts, and we're also going to be on YouTube. So you can find us through those different things. I'm sure we'll add more options to listen to us in the future. But right now, those are the ones that I'm like sure that we'll be on. But yeah, this was our first On Mind podcast. We're gonna be doing these hopefully weekly.
Hopefully
And
weekly.
we'll see you in
Yeah.
the next one.
Yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you. We appreciate you
Thank
listening.
you so much. Serious. Yeah.
I think we've gone pretty long. I think we've gone for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty wild.
hopefully in the future we'll shorten these up for you guys. But for this week, that's all we got. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.